I want to welcome you on to the Gray Man Podcast. Um, while on the Gray Man Podcast, I don't do introductions only because I don't know what people have going on, like Operation Security, stuff like that. So whatever you want to call yourself based on whatever you may have in your past is what we're going to go with. So, sir, introduce yourself, brother.
So I'm Sheldon Harris here in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
But from Columbus, Ohio, always a Buckeye.
Okay, that'll work. Oh, wait. My man. So you say you were from Columbus, Ohio. Tell us what your childhood was like, bro.
What my salary was like?
No. Childhood.
My childhood.
Yeah.
So I was born and raised in Toledo, Ohio.
Okay.
Just about 2.5 hours north of Columbus. And my parents had me when they were young. So my grandparents kind of took care of us. I have 2 little brothers.
Okay.
And then when I was about 7 years old, my parents split. And I ended up having 2 half brothers. My dad got remarried.
Okay.
So we've been in, Columbus, Ohio, mostly all of our life, and was kind of raised there. And grew up, did childhood things, got in trouble when I was little. And
I was gonna say, what were you like as a child?
Man, as a child, I was different. As a child, man, I was I've always been a leader. Ever since I was little, leading the football games, leading the basketball games, leading, backyard baseball, stuff like that. I was always kind of the class clown.
Okay.
As I got older, I've kind of calmed down a little bit.
I can dig it. So, what was school like for you, bro?
So, school, man, honestly, I've never been like a really, really smart kid. So like straight A's was never something that I got. I stayed in like the C. Like I was okay with the C. Like a C was the A to me.
Okay.
I had to really try in school because I had a hard time paying attention.
Yeah.
To things I wasn't really that interested in.
Yeah, definitely.
If you talk to me about something I would be interested in, I was all in.
Okay.
And I would do well at that. So obviously, every kid loves PE.
For sure.
Every kid loves gym class and stuff like that. I was an athlete all my life. So being in gym obviously was the fun part. I loved art.
Okay.
So I really excelled in art. So anything creative, anything hands-on, I was more of a hands-on learner.
Okay, that's what's up. And you just, because you mentioned it, and also in our research, I see that you were athletic, pretty athletic dude growing up. And can you tell us, like, what was your favorite sports? What sports did you play growing up?
Yeah, so I played football all my life. And since I was 8 years old, I was playing running back.
Okay.
And I was actually pretty good, surprisingly.
Okay.
My dad kind of coached me up, and I was pretty known in that area for football. Ended up playing Division II and going into high school. And
all right, so going into high school, Division II, like what school, what high school did you play
so I went to Hilliard Darby High School.
Okay.
And the crazy thing is that I didn't play my freshman, sophomore, and junior year.
Really?
Because I got in trouble in 8th grade, and my mom took me off the football team, and I lost my momentum, and I just focused on basketball. Crazy thing is, I wasn't really that great at basketball, but I really wanted to focus on basketball. But my senior year, they got a new coach for football.
Yeah.
And everybody was talking about they got a new coach. And I thought, well, if it's a new coach, I might as well go ahead and try.
Yeah.
And I went to play football my senior year and ended up setting like 3 records and doing really well.
Yeah, that's
my senior year of high school as a wide receiver. And then my hope was to go to college and play football. I got a scholarship to Tiffin University.
Is that up by Toledo?
Yeah, it's up by Toledo, Division II school. But they didn't have, or I didn't get all the paperwork done in time. My parents weren't really there. I didn't really know what I was doing with FAFSA and NCAA and all that confusing stuff at the time. I ended up not meeting the deadline. I had my whole workout plan together. I was meeting with the coaches, getting called from the coaches for summer, getting ready for summer camp, and at the last minute, it didn't work out.
You know, it's funny. I actually have something like a similar history to what you're talking about. So in the 8th grade, I also got into trouble, and I was supposed to go to West High School because I went to Westmore. I ended up not going to West, and I ended up moving in with my grandmother. So kind of like, the grandparents raising you.
Yeah.
And I lived with my grandmother in Upper Arlington. So I went from the hilltop with all my brothers and sisters, brothers and sister, and then we moved to Upper Arlington. So you talk about a complete culture shock, bro. And I was a baseball player, so I was a baseball star, and I didn't really get back into playing baseball until I went back into public school later on when I went to East. But yeah, man, I definitely understand what you're saying. And then the FAFSA thing too. That's funny. Like I didn't actually graduate high school, but I got a GED, went to the military. But when I came back from the military, I wanted to go to college. Well, actually, I just wanted to go to like a technical school, learn a trade. And I had a buddy, and I was trying to learn HVAC and some electrical engineering and stuff like that. So I had to fill out. I wasn't 24 yet, and you have to have your parents' information and say 24. At least that's what it was back in the day. So like you, man, you didn't have all the paperwork and all the knowledge and everything like that. And then also, I'm not sure if it's part of your story, but mine, my mother was reluctant to give me her information back then. So I completely missed out on the opportunity. So I know what you're saying in terms of missing an opportunity because of not understanding the college paperwork, and then also getting in trouble in the 8th grade and missing opportunities in high school. So I can definitely relate to that, bro. So I understand that you married, and did you meet your wife in school? Or where did you meet her?
So I met my wife at a party.
Okay.
I met my wife at a party. I was actually dating her friend. So like I was dating her friend.
Yeah.
We were kind of talking, and I went to this party, and I was checking her out. She was checking me out, but we never said nothing to each other.
Yeah.
And then it was in the MySpace days.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I had to hit her on MySpace, and we started talking, and really honestly, like. We hit it off the first time we talked, man. We were on the phone for like 5 hours.
That's back when you had to be attached to the wall, right?
Yeah, don't age.
Because all of y'all looking like this, y'all looking at your cell phone.
Yeah, that was the cordless phone.
Exactly. But when the computer had the big back, like the TV. Yeah, for sure, bro.
And when you talking on the phone to somebody, you can hear somebody pick up the phone upstairs.
Hey, I'm on the phone. Hang up the
phone, and you don't hear him hang up.
Boy, you better do them dishes.
Right.
Why are you on the phone? You embarrassing me.
Right. You got to hear them.
Exactly. No, you ain't slick. Hang up the phone. Right. I got you. Exactly. Yeah, that's what's up, man. So we talked about like you meeting your wife and everything like that. So still in your youth, what did you want to be when you wanted to grow up, man? What did you actually want to be?
Two things.
Okay.
I wanted to be two things. Ever since I was probably 3 years old. Well, I guess maybe three things. One of them, my grandparents always told me I was going to be a preacher ever since I was 3.
Okay.
Because I would always in the kitchen make them all stand up.
Yeah.
And sing a worship song with me, and I would literally like orchestrate them singing. So that was one thing. Okay. I didn't know it was in me, obviously, as a little boy. No doubt. As I began to grow up, I was always two things. I was always a police officer, and I was always Superman. So I would literally play cops and robbers. That
sounds like self-manifestation.
Yeah, right. Right. So I would always play cops and robbers with my brothers.
Okay.
And I don't know if you remember Chips.
I do.
Back in the day,
TV show.
Punch and John. Yeah. That was my favorite show. I watched that all the time. And we would be on our bikes, and I would ride around and jump off my bike and tackle them and stuff like that. And
that's funny.
This is actually kind of funny, but I used to always put my underwear over my pants.
So you were Doug Funny.
right.
Yeah, shout out to Nickelodeon.
Exactly.
I honestly, I used to want to be Doug Funny too. I was looking for my patty mayonnaise, but let's say that for another
that
show.
Was me, man.
No
doubt. And I would put a towel. My grandma would safety pin a towel to my back.
Okay.
And I would just go around the house like I was Superman. I love Superman.
That's what's up.
I always wanted to just rescue somebody. I always had it in me to help people who were in need. So that's literally who I was as a child, and being a cop was a dream of mine since I was, 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, no doubt. So how did your early life experiences shape your aspirations and career choices? I mean, obviously you was talking about playing cops and robbers and stuff like that, but did you have any like other experiences like, the way I was treated like this, or me seeing something like that, they definitely made me want to be a superhero or somebody that can kind of stand in the gap between good and evil?
Man, I've always had a heart since I was little for people who had need, people who had a weakness, people who had an issue. I always somehow became the solution. Even in 6th grade, I remember talking to my friends on the phone, and I always found myself counseling people and helping them out of a situation called stuck.
Yeah.
People feel stuck and they need encouraged and stuff like that. But as far as like being a police officer, man, it was just always my heart, man. It was always in me ever since I was little. And when I realized that I got older and it started getting more real, and I started realizing, oh, this is actually a possibility. I can actually do this.
Yeah.
All I have to do is put in an application. I would go to the fair and I would see the recruiters out there, with their table, and I would go to this event, see the recruiters out, and then I would see a commercial, or I was like, man, it just became more real to me, and the more real it became, the more I stepped into it.
Wow. See, what's funny, like obviously, that I ended up kind of similar path trajectory, anyways, becoming law enforcement too, and for me it was different. Like growing up, like we were taught that police were the enemy. Like my father, may he rest in peace, no disrespect to his legacy, but he got in trouble a lot. And he was, in our family, they were always involved with the law, and it was all about like, don't say too much, and, and we don't talk to the police and stuff like that. But, as I grew up, I didn't get any major trouble. Yeah. And then my brother, this is how we kind of met. We met at the church, Potter's House in Columbus, Ohio. Shout out to the Potter's House. My baby brother, Stephen, was actually being deployed to Afghanistan in 2011. And y'all had a church service because it was the whole National Guard unit that was in that area. And several people from the church were getting deployed. And my brother was one of them. And my brother was like, hey, man, come to the church. They're going to have a service for us. And that's how we ended up meeting and how we ended up becoming members of the church and everything. So when he came back from Afghanistan, he became a deputy with Franklin County back home. And when he was a deputy, he started telling me like, yo, man, cops are regular dudes, man. They have barbecues, man. They talk about games and because so you don't really think of the human side of police or anyone in law enforcement, or as a first responder, firefighters still, we can roll them up. Like you think it's a special type of personality that they're looking for, but really they just looking for regular dudes, and these are just regular people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's cool, man. And then also on my journey in law enforcement, you were one of the people who were able to mentor me through different steps and stuff that I was experiencing. So yeah, that's cool. That's just another side. Yeah. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. So you were living a life and the direction of your life changed and you had an experience with God, bro. How did that happen?
Man. So since I was little, my grandmother always kind of kept me in church.
Yeah.
But as I got older and was able to make some of my own decisions, really after my parents got divorced, it was just my dad was gone. So that kind of like changed things in the house. My mom stopped going to church.
Yeah.
I stopped. It's like my foundation became weaker.
Yeah.
But as I began to get older, I was, drinking and smoking and fighting all the time and just doing crazy stuff.
I can completely relate.
Man, I was absolutely crazy. It was almost like the inner child in me came alive again as an adult, a young adult.
Second childhood, man.
Yeah, man. Like, but there was one time, it was that phone call with my now wife.
Yeah.
The first time we talked on the phone, we talked about God for like 5 hours, and we weren't living right, if you will.
Yeah, I understand.
But we were talking about God, and it sparked my interest because I never was able to have a back and forth conversation with a female about something I grew up understanding.
Yeah.
And so we started hanging out, and then September 21st, 2008. My wife had Crohn's disease. And so she was like 90 pounds, couldn't eat anything, taking medication all the time, taking shots all the time, and pill after pill after pill, in and out of the hospital. And she just came back from the hospital September 20th, and she wasn't feeling well. That was a Saturday.
Yeah.
And we weren't expecting to go to church on September 21st, which was a Sunday, because she wasn't feeling well. Well, while I'm sleeping, I hear something wake me up in the morning, and it's her. She's getting ready. I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm getting ready for church. I said, I thought we weren't going. She said, I feel like we should go. So we ended up going to church. And while we were there, she's pale white, sweating.
Yeah.
Feels like she's about to pass out.
Yeah.
And for some reason, she said, we got to go. And I said, we can't. And it was odd because she really needed to go. She wasn't feeling well. And I said, I feel like we need to stay. And that wasn't like me to do, especially when she's in pain. I said, we need to stay here, and we stayed. And long story short, the pastor had an altar call. And when he had an altar call, we went up to the altar, and it's just like the presence of God was so heavy. Yeah. We were crying out to God, and an elder came over. Remember Carlos?
Yeah.
Carlos came over, and he said, man, you're about to have a testimony. And he prayed for us, and we both, man, got baptized in the Holy Spirit. And it was crazy because I was praying over her.
Yeah.
And I was seeing sickness leaving her body. And I'd never been in a situation like this before, but when I looked at her after we were done crying, I said, babe, you're healed.
That's what's up.
And she was like, I know. And the first thing that we did was we drove all the way home to Dublin to her parents, who were unbelievers.
Yeah.
And we told them, and they begged us to not throw away her medication because that was the only thing keeping her alive.
Yeah.
And she went home and she got everything that had to do with Crohn's disease, which there's no cure for that, and threw it all away. And that was keeping her alive. But now it was Christ that was keeping her alive.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
she didn't need her medication anymore. Went back to the doctor. They did a scan. They did all the things they needed to do. Couldn't find anything. And so that was life-changing for me.
Wow.
Because growing up, hearing about the Bible and church and being there, the Bible actually came to life to me in that moment, because I realized that all the healings that I read about in the Bible are still happening. And so the Bible that I thought was just a history book became reality in the present. And that changed my life. And from then on, I've seen God do miraculous things with many people. And so that was kind of really the start of me realizing that, wow, the Jesus I read about in the Bible is still doing the same things, and he's wanting to do those same things through us.
Yeah, that's what's up. Man, that's what's up. That's okay. So were there any influential mentors who guided you in the early stages of this journey?
Absolutely. Carlos was one of them.
Okay.
And the thing about the mentorship was not really just, well, you know, when you think about church, we kind of put it in a box.
Yeah.
So he was mentoring me as me being a potential leader, pastor, etc. But the thing I loved about the way he mentored is that he didn't just mentor based on hot churchy things.
Yeah.
But he mentored me in life. And what I mean by that is, you know, how to dress, how to carry yourself, how to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, how to posture yourself, how to speak, you know, how to enunciate your words, how to speak clearly, how to speak louder, roll your shoulders back, you know, the things that a father teaches their son.
Absolutely.
Was what I was getting. I didn't know that I needed it.
Yeah.
We were very poor, so we didn't have any money. And so he would lend me all of his clothes, and he was about a size bigger than I was.
Yeah.
So if you watch some of my old preaching videos, you'll see my pants are a little bit too big because I didn't have clothes.
Yeah,
so he would give me pants to wear, and he would give me a dress shirt to wear. He's like, man, come on, you gotta dress better than that. Get me a button up, or get me a polo, you know. It really just taught me life skills, how to treat my wife, how to be a father to my kids, you know, some of the practical, hands-on things that people don't just know.
Yeah,
you know, growing up, life doesn't teach you those things. So he was able to teach me the things life didn't teach me. And it actually provided a better life for me.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah.
So, you know, you just talked about being a pastor. So your calling was to, in the church, was to shepherd others. When did you realize that you wanted to be a police officer too during this calling?
Yeah. So, man, when I was 21 years old is when I wanted to go into law enforcement, and I applied to Grove City Police.
Okay.
And I was excited. I remember going up to their little headquarters and getting an application and filling it out.
Yeah.
And I felt a strong sense from God that I wasn't supposed to do that. And I was upset because I'm like, you know, we don't have a lot of money. This would be a great opportunity for our family. It's me living my dream.
Yeah.
And he said, you're not ready. Now, knowing what I know now as a former police officer, I can see why I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
At the age of 21.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to handle the things that I would have to go through. But when I became 28, I really felt a release to step into my dream, my calling. And I think the reason why that happened is because I needed to establish a foundation as a leader, as a pastor, as a minister first, so that I knew that's what he always wanted out of me as a career, more than he wanted law enforcement to be the end all be all. So when I was 28 years old, I applied to the Columbus Police. Funny thing is, I won't say his name, but one of my good friends has been trying to get on Columbus Police for years. And he's like, man, it's hard, man. It's 2,000 plus applicants. I tried to get on 3 times, man. I'm not able to get on. Well, I felt like I was listening to God, and because I obeyed him when he told me not to when I was 21.
Yeah.
When I was 28, I applied and ended up ranking number 2 out of 2,000 something applicants or whatever, and they were only looking for I think 50 people to go through the academy. And so I thought in my mind I can do both. I could be a pastor and I could be a police officer, and nobody really understood that because people were like, you're either one or the other, and I was like, no. I said being a minister is who I am. It's not what I do, it's who I am. And so who I am is going to be a police officer, and who I am is going to be a pastor. So you're going to get both.
Man, that's crazy. So, excuse me, by the way. Yeah. So, that's crazy. Cause I was funny. Like you said that you felt the call and to want to apply. I mean, you wanted that the desire to want to apply at 21. All right. So to kind of put comparison to my life, like when I said, my brother, he came home from Afghanistan. He became a deputy in 12 or the beginning of 13, one of the two. So, that's when I was like, yo, okay, if you can do it, man, I want to do it too. And so I started applying for police department, like CPD was one of them, Columbus Police, and then the sheriff's office also, and a couple of other little departments and the feds. I just kind of threw a wide net out there, man. And I kept getting turned down. Like I would apply for CPD Columbus, and I would get all the way to the end. Like I was A-band, because they had the ABC band. I was A-band, man. I turned in all my PHQ. Went through everything, the polygraph, the home visit, the ride along, everything. And it just never happened for me, man. And I was frustrated. Like I would get all the way to the end, even the group, the panel interview. And they were like, okay. And the public safety director, no. So one time I even met the public safety director and I tried to be friendly with him because I was kind of also a promoter at the time too. And to try to get on his good side. And then I asked him after the next time he turned me down, like, bro, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
I don't have no felonies. Like I didn't do anything. And he just was like, he didn't have an answer for me. So long story short, obviously I moved to Virginia to become a deputy out there. And then when I got to Virginia, then it was my time because when I got to the academy, I was the president of the academy class. I was immediately like moved up to the top of different training opportunities and stuff like that too, man. But I didn't have that chance until I was almost 35. Yeah. So, I had been applying because, the cutoff for like the highway patrol was like 30.
Yeah.
And I had been applying and going through and all the way to the end. And even one time when you was in the academy, I was in the process because I saw you at the academy.
Yeah.
You was there doing something. And I was like, oh, they were like, how do you know this guy? He's my pastor.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and that was just another one of those times too, man. But so anyways, getting back into it, man. When you joined the police department, you said when you were 28. What year was that?
2015.
Okay. And what was the academy like, bro?
The academy was, man, sometimes you don't know who you have the potential of being until you have someone pushing you consistently.
Okay.
That's the best way I can say it. I didn't know I was capable of some of the things that I did.
Yeah.
As far as like what my body was able to do. I've played football my whole life, so I was a sprinter.
Yeah.
I wasn't running 5 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
doubt.
And when you have someone that you're obligated to, that's helping you cross some of those mindsets and thresholds.
Yeah, for sure.
It really helps you to understand mind over matter.
I got
you can accomplish whatever you put your mind to. So the academy, man, like the discipline of keeping your uniform ironed and pressed, and your boots shine every single day, showing up to the academy at 5:30 in the morning, and getting ready for formation, and getting in trouble if you had a piece of lint on your shirt.
Oh yeah,
having to do push-ups and run because when you walked into the room to take the test, the paper was on the table and all the chairs were on the table too.
Yeah,
and so we took the chairs down to sit on the chairs to take the test. And got in trouble for taking the chairs down because that was not a part of our instruction. Because they're trying to teach us to pay attention to detail.
Absolutely.
And that's not what we were told to do. And in the academy, man, there was a lot of things I didn't understand why we got in trouble for the things we got in trouble for. I didn't understand why we had to do the things we had to do. I didn't understand why they would nitpick at everything that we did, really until I got out onto the street. And I started realizing that some of the things that I thought were stupid in the academy developed an instinct on the street. Saved my life. Paying attention to detail saved my life. Out there on the streets, man. We went through some crazy stuff.
So how long was the academy, bro?
So the academy was about 7 months.
Okay. And can you tell us a memory that you have from the academy besides the chair, the beat down from the
chair? Some memories?
Yeah.
Man, I do have one memory I'll never forget for the rest of my life. In the academy, there's plenty of memories, but one I'll never forget. So when I found out that I was going to become a police officer, I found out that when I fight, I have to fight with my gun side back.
Okay.
Now I'm ambidextrous, so I write left-handed. I brush my teeth left-handed, but I play basketball with my right hand.
Got you.
I kick with my right foot, so I'm very ambidextrous, but I shoot with my left hand.
Oh, okay, wow.
And so because I shoot with my left hand, I had to keep my left hip back, which meant I had to learn how to fight left-handed.
Wow.
And when I found that out, I went into title boxing and I got a membership, and I had to learn how to fight left-handed. And I actually started to become pretty good. And when I got into the academy, I was, we had to do boxing training.
Yeah.
And I was knocking people out, and people were afraid to box me. And one of the academy instructors found out.
Yeah.
And found out that I was good with my hands.
Yeah.
Well, he's like a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
The same thing happened to me.
Really?
In my DT class, bro, because I'm a fighter with my hands.
Yeah.
And man, dude he was a college wrestler and a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter, and he would take me to the ground and for hours. I'm fighting the dude, and he was like, "You need to learn how to get back on your feet."
Yeah.
And he taught. That was a lesson I learned too, man.
Yep.
And I was like, "Well, if you grab me, I'm just gonna shoot you."
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I had the same.
That's crazy.
I got the same problem. I can work with my hands all day, and I learned. I got to learn to keep space and distance. And move. And you're right, bro. Because when you grab, I'm no good on the ground.
It literally changed my life.
Yeah, for sure.
When he found out that was me, we had to do Hitman.
Yep.
The
Red Man.
Yeah, Red Man.
I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, man. They had the big old suit, look like big old grizzly bears.
Yes, sir.
Coming in a scenario, and when he came in a scenario, I had to in the scenario he did something illegal, and it was you have to apprehend the guy.
Yeah.
So I'm going up to the guy, talking to him, trying to de-escalate the situation. That's not working. So I have to go hands-on with this guy.
Yeah.
And as soon as I go hands-on with him, he swings at me.
Yeah.
And punches me.
Yeah.
Right. So I take the punch, and then now I'm squared up.
Exactly.
We're about to fight.
You ready? Yeah.
I'm ready to fight. Right. I'm like, right.
Now I'm in my element. Okay.
Now I'm in my element. Okay. It's time to throw hands. Right. I was fully confident in that.
Absolutely.
But what he did was, he took me to the ground.
Yeah, I knew it.
Immediately.
Yep.
Immediately.
Yep. That's the right idea.
And he is a beast in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. That's what he does. He trains people. He has his own gym.
Yeah.
And if you don't know Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you ain't getting out of nothing.
No, sir.
And what he was doing with me is he had me in a guard I couldn't get out of. He was switching around in different positions.
Telling you to shrimp.
He was taking everything off of my belt.
Yeah.
My belt keeps. He was throwing them.
Oh, wow.
Like he was specifically taking each thing.
People on the sidelines laughing.
Oh, yeah.
The whole class watching. That's how they do it.
No, watch this. The whole class was in the room next door waiting.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't know the scenario. This is funny.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
this is the funny part. One of the instructors was over top of me while he was just completely destroying me. He was yelling at me saying, "Recruit Harris, don't you got a family at home?
Yeah.
Are you gonna die on the streets? You're not gonna fight back." All these things. I'm like, my goodness, it's real. It feels like real life.
Yeah.
And he's destroying me, man. I had blood all over me.
Yeah.
My radio was dragging behind me. All the stuff was off my belt. My belt was hanging on. Belt keeps all over the place. Yeah. So by the time the scenario was over, I lost. Like you had to pass. I lost that scenario. You had to at least get one out of two, and I failed that one. And I had blood all over my shirt. My shirt was all ripped up. I just looked like I got attacked by a bear. So now everybody is in the next room waiting for me. I'm like the fourth guy to go. There's still like 40 people to go. I walk into that room and they saw me because they were all like, Shell can handle his own.
For sure. Yeah, that's how they treated me. Yeah,
man, I had blood all over me. My radio was hanging off, and I was hyperventilating.
Yeah.
And they were terrified when they saw what happened to me. The ambulance had to come.
Yeah.
I had to get oxygen. It was bad, man. I was dehydrated.
Yeah.
Because I was just wasn't eating right.
Yeah.
So I was extremely dehydrated, and they had to get fluids in me and all kinds of stuff. But I talked to him the next day.
Yeah. And
he came up to me and he told me, he said, "I did that to you on purpose." He said, "Because I heard that you have hands and that you can box, and that's all good, but 70, 75, 80% of fights go to the ground."
Absolutely.
And he said, "I want you to live.
Yep.
And I want you to take more time practicing on the ground than you do standing up, so that you don't end up on the streets in trouble.
Yeah.
And I care for you." And I've always, his name is Tim. I always thanked him for that. My whole
Sergeant
career,
Gill.
I always thank him for that. Changed my life.
Mine was Sergeant Gill. He did the same thing. So I wasn't bloody, and I wasn't one of the first ones to fight. I was actually in the last group. Like the whole week, they've been fighting everybody else, and I was in the last group, and we were like the stronger dudes, the bigger dudes. You know what I'm saying? And I was the last person fighting, and I swear I was fighting for like 3 or 4 hours, bro. Because at first, I'm on my feet, I'm whooping the dudes up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But then Captain, his name was Captain Ward. He was like, "Okay, lay on your back." Well, lay on my back for what?
Right. Yeah.
All right, now get out of that. Oh, so you think you're pretty good? So then Sergeant Gill came in. Like I say, he was a wrestler, bro. He was whooping me in there, man. And I came when I was also dehydrated. I wasn't eating right and all that. So when I came back in the classroom, like I was sweaty, my shirt was all stretched out. And it was kind of torn, and everybody's looking at me like, "Dad," because I was flipping people in the class and everything. We was doing our DTs because I'm one of the bigger, stronger dudes in the class.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they definitely humbled me, man. So, what was your first day on the job like, bro?
First day on the job,
if you remember.
Yeah, I remember. When I was in the academy, we would always have like lieutenants come in, and they would share their stories about what they went through on the precinct they worked. And for some reason, we had 2 back-to-back lieutenants who were on 5 precinct, which in Columbus, Ohio, is the South Linden area, Hudson, 17th, Cook, all that. And both of their experiences were near death. Gun put to their head, trigger pull.
Day one?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they were just telling a story when we were in the academy about 5 precinct. I'm like, I'm going to work on 5 precinct? What does this look like, right? The first place I ended up going to coach was on 5 precinct. I ended up falling in love with it.
Yeah.
And my coach was amazing. So we had to go through like 16 weeks of coaching or whatever. But my first day by myself out on the streets, I remember how I felt like I didn't even know anything.
Yeah.
And everything was happening so fast. I was like, it seemed like I didn't even go through the academy. It's just like you're out here by yourself.
Yeah.
I was forgetting stuff. I'll never forget one time I pulled a car over. I was just trying to get my first traffic stop out of the way and get all the jitters out. And I pulled this car over for something. And when I walk up to the car, I get their information. I bring it back to my car. And while I'm in my car, tone drops. And there's like a robbery or something like that in progress. And I'm pulling this car over for like failure to signal.
Yeah.
Man, I ran all this stuff back to him. I said, "Hey, have a nice day. Just take the warning," and jumped in my car and like tried to get to the robbery or whatever. I had no clue where I was going.
Yeah.
It was a mess. It was a hot mess, It seemed like every day was the first day for a while. But it was a surreal moment.
That's what's up. So how did you balance home life, the demands of work, personal interests, hobbies, and the church, man?
Man, I didn't. I think balance is an unrealistic word.
Especially in that profession.
Yeah. It's, what is balance in our life? It's nothing is 50-50. Nothing is really balanced. Like if we really define that word, nothing that we do is really actually balanced. But it was very difficult, man. Being a police officer, it was a lot of stress physiologically.
Yeah.
So like you get used to all the death and you get used to, going through the things that you go through. But physiologically, your body is not built to handle that kind of stress. And so, before in the academy, they would always teach us about the big boy chair, the lazy boy chair.
Yeah.
They were like, don't get stuck in the lazy boy.
Yeah.
And that was just a thing that they said because most cops, man, they just go home and they just don't want to be bothered by anybody.
I was that guy for a little while.
Yeah, you know, you just, you know, your wife will ask you to do something. It's like, I done took so many dispatch calls yesterday. Like, I don't want another dispatch call. Like, let me do what I want to do. I don't want to be on a time limit. I don't want to rush. I don't want to. I started moving slower. I didn't like, you know, when I had the opportunity to be in control of my pace. I kind of went to the extreme with it.
For sure.
Know, just because when you get to work, you're not in control of the pace.
Nope.
The streets are. You know, so the balance was very difficult, especially because I was working third shift. So I was working 10P to 6A.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And then I had to go to church on Sunday. And so I didn't go. I went to church with no sleep.
Yeah.
And then I would come home and I would be, you remember what it felt like when you just no sleep. You start feeling nauseous and sick and like delusional. So that was me every Saturday and the Sunday. So it was hard to balance. But I'm thankful that I had, you know, counselors and mentors in my life to kind of help me, you know, deal with some of the things. I never struggled with PTSD or anything like that, but how I cope was I had to learn how to cope. You know, when I first started, I didn't really necessarily know how. But me sitting in my lazy boy wasn't working.
I remember too, like when I was hospital police at Mount Carmel West, and you know, they closed it down. But I remember you coming in there a couple of times, and I would ask people that came from your area, your precinct, your zone. No, man, y'all know Sheldon, man, blah blah blah. And one time I came in because we were one of the trauma centers, one of the only trauma centers in the city at the time. They were like, yeah, man, last week he shot a dude in the shoulder. I was like, what? I remember I asked you about it in church.
You know, that was my 1 year anniversary.
Really?
Yeah. My 1 year anniversary, not even on my precinct. And the crazy thing about it is that my partner that day was my first coach.
Really?
Yeah. So I put in 5 precinct, my first coach was Marty. Great guy, man. Great guy. Once I got out of coaching and everything, we got to pick where we wanted to be. I wanted to be on 5 precinct. I ended up falling in love with that area, and I didn't get accepted. But then what happened was the sergeant of 5 precinct told me to email the lieutenant. And I'm like, he said, just do it. So I emailed Lieutenant Kuykendall. And she already liked me. And she ended up going up the chain of command and get me on 5 precinct. So I ended up being a partner with my first coach.
That's what's up.
And so my first shooting was with him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was my 1 year anniversary. So, and man, everything happened so fast. But that goes back to how the things in the academy I didn't understand develop instinct when I was out on the street, because I didn't have to think about what to do.
Yeah, for sure.
What I needed to do happened without thinking. Because it was so instinctive. It was a crazy situation, man.
Oh, absolutely. I remember you telling me some of the details about it back then.
But the crazy thing is myself and another officer fired our weapon, and he was shot 5 times, but he didn't die. So he was in the hospital for a little while, recovering from his injuries. And you still have to go to court. You still have to meet with attorneys and stuff like that. And so we're in the process of that. But because he didn't die, we don't have to go to Supreme Court or anything like that. So we're still going through that whole process or whatever. And we got a call one day that he had passed. And we were like, man, that kind of changes things. Then we have to go to Supreme Court and things just get a little bit more.
Was it as a result of the shooting with y'all?
So it was a good shooting, first of all. It was a good shooting. Very black and white shooting. But he didn't die because of his injuries. He died from a bee sting.
Really?
A bee sting.
Wow,
he had an allergic reaction to a bee sting.
It's just his time, bro.
Man, he was young.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, he was young. He was like in his 30s.
Besides this one, do you have any other stories from patrol?
You want a funny story or a crazy story?
Whichever, bro.
Let me see.
Because I know the area. See, the viewers don't know, but I know the area too. My cousins used to live on 16th. I had a may he rest in peace. I had a cousin that was murdered on 20th in Cleveland. I had a cousins that live on 16th. Some live on 18th. Around Duxbury, 25th. I know
so the area.
I know it intimately. Even though I'm from the West Side, but I know that area.
It's rough.
Very, very well.
It's rough. One story I do remember that I think was probably one of, out of many accomplishments that I've had, I feel like this is probably one of the ones I kind of pride myself in. It was a late night, maybe 2:00 in the morning. We got a call on 4 precinct.
Yeah.
Just right on the border of our precinct on campus that there was a female who had went into McDonald's and left her 6-year-old in the car.
Wow.
And
okay.
when she went into McDonald's, someone jumped in her car and took it.
Wow.
And so we got a call that there was a stolen vehicle now turned into an abduction, kidnapping. And so they gave a description of the vehicle, gave the tag, and I thought, if this happened 10 minutes ago, I'm probably not going to find this car.
Yep.
It's probably already out of the precinct or whatever. So what I did was I started driving westbound on 17th, and I'm just crossing over 71. And there's a McDonald's right there by the fairgrounds. Yep. And for some reason, I look over to the right and I see a car that matches the description coming from 71 South on the 17th. Now I'm thinking, wow. I'm thinking, campus is south.
Yeah.
Like southwest. I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, why in the world would that car be coming from 71 southbound?
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way. I air on my radio, like, what's the tag to that car again? They gave me the tag. That's it. I flip around. I got this on video on my phone. I flip around and I get behind the car.
Yeah.
I call the tag out. It matches the description. I'm airing out my whole location. We're going eastbound on 17th.
Yeah.
And
was there any acceleration from the vehicle? Because I know CPD has a no chase policy, right?
So that's what we were trying to figure out while we were in the middle of it, because the child was in the back. So this kind of intensifies it to almost a violent crime.
Yeah, definitely.
So he ends up going northbound on I can't even remember what that street is. Remember west of Cleveland on 17th.
West of Cleveland.
East of 71. Hamilton.
Okay, Hamilton, yeah.
Hamilton. So he goes northbound on Hamilton and he's driving, just running through stop signs.
Okay.
And so even if we were allowed to chase, I'm not running through stop signs like that because I'm not trying to get T-boned. So I'm going through stop signs at a decent speed. He ends up going up alleys and I end up chasing at this point.
Yeah.
This is a full-blown pursuit. I'm airing to everybody. So everybody's paralleling me. Yeah. Everybody's trying to get to me. I turned my sirens off to try to get them to slow down, to try to see if that could kind of help deter, help from pursuing or whatever. Anyway, he goes through all these areas and we end up coming up on like 26 or something like that. He's going westbound and a cruiser's now coming dead on at him.
Yeah.
So he ends up making another right and goes up. There's another cruiser coming. So everybody's all like, coming in on him, end up pitting him into a fence and getting the kid out of the car without being harmed. We made an arrest. So he wasn't harmed. The kid wasn't harmed. We got the kid back to his mother. And that was awesome because who knows what could have happened to that.
Most definitely. Did he have any connection to the female?
None.
Wow, that's crazy.
None. So there was no telling where he could have left the car.
Yep.
The kid would have just been out, not knowing where he was, or if he could have crashed the car.
Yeah, definitely.
The kid could have been killed. I felt like it was worth a reward. Police officers aren't rewarded very much for what they. We get reprimanded more than we get rewarded.
For sure,
right?
It's a thankless job.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I really held that run dear to me. Although there's been many, just because that kid was
for sure
so young.
Definitely. Well, that's what's up, man. How long were you actually a police officer, and did you miss it?
A little over 5 years. Yeah, I miss it. I still miss it, man. Like when I see cruisers pulling people over, I'm always, hoping that they're okay. And,
yeah, for sure.
If it's in you, it's in you.
It's in you, yeah, definitely.
You can't do anything about it,
I get cut off on the freeway. I reach in the middle console, like, where my lights at?
Right, exactly. It's in you, and I miss it a lot, but I know that's not what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
I kind of wish it was.
Yeah.
Because it was the best job I ever had.
For sure.
I've worked many jobs in my life, and that was probably one of that was probably a job I had where I was treated like an adult.
Yep.
I wasn't. You didn't have somebody breathing down your neck.
The most filling. Yeah, absolutely.
You were free to do what you wanted. Obviously, as long as it was your job, but you got to help the community. You got to meet people.
Most
you got
definitely.
to connect with people. So many opportunities.
So what was the defining moment, bro, that caused you to want to leave the department? The job you loved.
When the Lord called me to Tampa. And, the backstory to that is in 2012, he was every time somebody said something about Florida, something would leap on the inside of me. I didn't know what was happening. I just felt a strong sense about Tampa, about Florida.
Yeah.
And one day I was getting into the bed and I heard the Lord say, Abraham, will you go? Now, I've been studying Abraham for months.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Abraham, will you go? And gave me a date. And I knew that he wanted me to go. And we took all the little bit of money that we had that week. A week later, my wife dropped me off at the Columbus airport.
Yeah.
And I flew into Orlando. And I was at the airport in Orlando praying for 7 hours in the airport, trying to figure out why God wanted me there. And I'm thinking, God, like, you've been talking to me about Abraham, and you said, Abraham, will you go? And talking to me about faith. And now I'm here. What do you want me to do? It was my second time ever flying, my first time ever renting a car, my first time ever getting a hotel on my own.
Yeah.
And 2 days later, I ended up in Tampa. The Lord told me to go to this church called River Hills Church of God, which is not too far from here. I went there, and after worship was over, the pastor gets up and he said, I want to preach a message to you titled Faith Like Abraham. And it was in that moment, it was like heaven winked at me. It was like God was like, job well done. You obeyed me. And it wasn't but 8 years later, somebody would say something about Florida and something would, that same thing happened again. I'm like, what is this? I started seeing Florida license plates and all this confirmation started happening. And I knew it was time for me to go. And I told my partner, I said, I feel like God is calling me to go to Tampa and plant a church.
That's what's up.
He's like, no way. We were making 6 figures.
Yeah, for sure.
Benefits were crazy.
Yep.
Dental and medical and vision, and for my kids and for my family. And the money was good. And we got our first home. I had a Scat Pack Challenger, black on black, Hemi, shaker. It was bad. I was at church and doing things there, and we had family, and the Lord said, it's time for you to go. And we left everything we had to come to Tampa, not knowing one person. I remember I sent my family here before I came, and the house was empty, and I'm there by myself.
Yeah.
Before I get in the U-Haul and take off, I had to turn in my gun. It was the last thing I had to turn in, and I had my gun out and I put it on the counter. Man, I cried. I didn't realize how attached I was to my weapon.
Yeah.
And I put that down, man. I cried. I thought, man, I'm about to leave something I love.
Yeah.
I'm about to leave a career I love, man. I'm about to leave my partner. I've been partners with for years, so many things were getting close. Like, I was getting close to working midwatch finally. And, I spent time on building seniority.
The opportunities
opportunities were coming. And I was just, they say once you get to about 3 years, 5 years,
doors start opening up.
Doors start opening.
That's how it was with me, bro.
Yeah. So it was around that time, man, that God said, it's time for you to go. And nobody believed me. So much so that when I left, I was in Florida for about a month, and people from work were calling. Hey, man, where you at? You trying to get something to eat? Man, I'm in Tampa. They're like, you really left? I said, I told you, God called me. Nobody believed that I would do it. Crazy thing is, right before I left, my pastor said, man, we want you to take over Reynoldsburg campus.
Really?
Yeah. That we want you to take over Reynoldsburg campus. And I had to turn it down.
Wow.
And it was crazy, man. Like we left everything. It was everything that we ever grew up in, everything we ever had was all there. And we came here not knowing one person. I used my income from Columbus Police to get a house to rent here.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a job. We didn't have nothing, man. We started a business 2 days after being here.
Yeah.
And the Lord kept us afloat. And 2 months into us living here, the Lord said, look for a building. Dropped the building in our lap. And people started coming, man. That we moved here August 2020, January 2021. We had our first pre-launch service, and 150 people showed up.
Wow. So because I also moving to Florida. I left law enforcement in Virginia because different reasons than you though. But I can understand. I don't know anybody down here either, bro.
Yeah.
And just hearing your story is kind of inspirational. And I was going to say, I was going to say, tell us about the journey to Florida, but you already kind of explained that. And you said it was like August 2020. So you went through the summer of love in Columbus when it had all those riots and everything that went national news. How was that situation for you? Like, what was?
Honestly, leaving at the end of the riots was the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah.
Because you know how it is as police officers. Like, when you find out your brother's in trouble, you want to be there.
Most definitely.
You know? And so we were coming to the tail end.
Yeah.
I think actually the riots had kind of ended, and then something else happened and kind of re-sparked them for a little bit.
Yep.
So the riots weren't fully going on at the time. But it was hard, man. It was hard not being there for my guys. I was seeing videos on the news of Columbus officers that I knew getting in shootings and being shot at.
Yeah, same thing, bro. Yep. I used to tell people, man, that's where I'm from. I know, like AJ, for example, when he had his situation downtown, I was like, bro, I know that dude, man.
Yeah.
And that was crazy. And I just remember when you was telling me, because I was still in Virginia, because I was going through some of the similar, because they weren't really doing riots as much per se as they were doing like full on marches on freeways, stopping traffic, attacking people's cars and stuff like that. They had some riot situations like in Portsmouth and a few of them in Norfolk where I was located at the time. But yeah, man, I remember you telling me that they had put your information on the internet and stuff like that. I was just like, man, because there was a guy that was running around doing that in Virginia too. He would put the camera in your face, badge, and he would go look you up. So yeah, bro.
You know what's crazy about that story? I don't know if you knew this or not, but before I was a cop, people in the church always were saying, "So are you leaving your calling?"
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm doing both. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And I knew that law enforcement was not something I was going to retire doing. I knew that it was going to be something I needed to experience for a short time. And I always said 5 years. So the crazy thing is that there was an incident at the gas station at 18th and Cleveland.
Yeah.
And my partner kept getting dispatched there for some unruly kids. And, you know, in the hood, the parents didn't care about the kids. So there's no point in contacting the parents. We just shoot them away, tell them to go home. We got called out a few times. And then the third time we got called out, we get there and we see a guy that we've had multiple run-ins and a lot of, gun crimes, stuff like that. We see him and we see he has a gun. So when we're walking up to him, we both got our guns out and we're trying to get to him without him seeing us first.
Yeah.
So that he doesn't, draw down on us or anything like that, put us in a bad situation. We get up to him and he sees us before we wanted him to. And he reaches down, he grabs the gun and he runs behind the car. My partner, thankfully, was at a good angle that he was able to get around to be able to get eyes on him. Drew down on him, got close enough to him to take him to the ground. I went and took him to the ground. At this point, I don't know who he's with, where his boys are.
Yeah.
There's people in the gas station. We're right at the front door of the gas station. We got him on the ground. We're wrestling around with him. He's got a gun on him. I tried to contain him and radio it in 10-3. And I had my gun out because I was watching our backs and make sure we didn't get ambushed by his boys.
Sure.
Well, while we're doing that, we finally get him cuffed. We get this gun off him. He had a 40. He had like a 30-round clip on him. He had a bunch of meth, a bunch of crack on him. A regular arrest. We take him, put him in the car. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. So we didn't get, our shift was over at 6. We didn't get home until like 8 in the morning.
Yeah, definitely.
So 8 in the morning, I get home. I'm dead tired. I go to sleep. My wife wakes me up at like 11. She wakes me up. Sheldon, what is this? She's shoving a phone in my face. I can't see what's happening. I then begin to look at it, and it's a picture of me. And it looks like my knee is on his neck in the middle of our tussle.
Oh, wow.
Somebody took a still shot.
Wow.
And it had over 500 shares in 2 hours. And it started going viral. This was after the George Floyd incident.
Yeah.
It went viral. They ended up getting my name. They ended up getting pictures. They ended up getting addresses. They started talking about protesting my house. So I had to call my sergeant, lieutenants were involved, commanders were involved. They got counterterrorism unit involved. They got undercover at my house. They said, you need to leave your home. We're gonna put you on paid leave.
Yeah.
So you need to leave your home. So I left my home and we went to a friend's house and we kept our family there. And we told our our kids, this is our vacation.
Yeah.
We didn't want them to know that we were trying to get out.
Yeah.
So we ended up going over there, and we were there for a couple of days, and it was stressful for me because I didn't want my family to have to. My wife,
your job poured over onto the family.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was stressful. If I was by myself, it'd be no big deal. But I had to take care of my wife and kids. And the crazy thing is, a few days after that, the Lord spoke to me, and He said, "Pay attention to the time." And I was like, and I went back to that incident.
Yeah.
And that incident took place on my 5-year anniversary.
Wow.
To the day.
Wow.
And the Lord said, it's time. And it was in that moment that I went on months of a process with the Lord speaking to me and me getting confirmation and the Lord helping me in my departure.
Yeah.
But I had my partner for a long time. We rode together all the time. And so leaving him was hard. I recorded a video. I was actually just watching it the other day, a video I recorded of us in the sub.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he was sad, man. You know what I mean? Like, I will never be partnered again.
Yeah, yeah.
We went through so much together, but it was before I became a cop, I always said 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on my 5-year anniversary that actually happened. And that changed how I prayed. Wow. Because I realized that I was actually getting closer to God moving us.
And like I was fortunate enough to never have to experience that type of fallout from the job, but I was cognizant that it could happen. Mm-hmm. So I remember I used to have like the little words that we would say if I was ever out with my family, like because I'm allergic to seafood. Go get me some fish.
Yeah.
So that I see trouble coming and it's time for y'all to leave.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's crazy, man. And
the crazy thing is the guy that we arrested that day, mm-hmm. Walked into a restaurant while me and my family were eating. Before that ever happened.
Wow.
And I knew who he was.
Yeah.
I'm sure he knew who I was. But we were just eating it as a family at Commercial Point.
Yeah, yeah.
Far away from where I work.
That is not nowhere near
where I work. Right?
I don't even think it's in the city.
Yeah, right. No, we're in Commercial Point eating at Roosters.
Wow.
And which I miss Roosters, by the way.
They don't have one down here?
No.
That's crazy.
But we're eating, and I see him walking with his boys.
Yeah.
He walks right past me to go sit behind me, of all places.
Yeah, yeah. He did it on purpose, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. And my wife was like, you arrested him before, haven't you? And I was like, yeah, but we're good. Because I didn't want her to freak out.
Yeah, yeah.
So we ate our food and got up out of there. He didn't, typically they don't mess with us. They just try to act hard,
Absolutely.
But yeah, that same kid was the one who we ended up having to wrestle with a gun. And so while we're doing good police work, we found out on the CCTV at the gas station he was waving the gun around before we ever even got there. And so while we're doing a good police work and not shooting the kid, punching the kid or anything, mm-hmm. who had the gun, mm-hmm. rightfully so, we had every ability to be able to do that, and we chose not to because we didn't feel it at the time. We're being ridiculed for apprehending a man who has a gun, and we're trying to get him not to shoot us. And now we're getting riots and protests and having to leave our home. Mm-hmm. And so.
Man, that's crazy, bro. So what led you to this moment, right? Like this place, this journey, where we are right now. So you've been in Florida from the time you left that church that you said gave you the affirmation about Abraham. What led you to this journey where we at right now?
Man, God led us here. Just a series of events, mm-hmm. paying attention. When we give God our attention, He'll lead us and He'll direct us. And so from 2012 to me praying in the Orlando airport to 2020, me leaving the Columbus Police Department, it was literally just our obedience, being here, that God began to start opening doors and giving us favor with the building that we were at. I think, did you ever come to University Mall?
I did.
We were at University Mall.
Remember, I have my daughter with me.
Yeah. We were at University Mall. And that's right.
Upstairs by the food court.
Yep. We were at University Mall. And then the Lord opened this door for us to be here at Crest Community, and we're still believing for our own building. So
what's funny about that is we first went to your church in the University Mall, and I had my sons with me. And they were like, "What are we doing? We church on Saturday? Like, why are we?" I was like, "Yeah, come on. We're going up here." So they went to the back room where your kids was at, and they went in there and your kids and my kids, they looked at each other like, you got big. No, you got big. And it was funny. So my son always asks, like, yo, can we go back to the church where the dudes when we was from Ohio?
Yeah.
Like,
That's funny.
And that's it, because
they haven't seen each other in a while.
For a while,
reunion.
Exactly. Yeah. And all right, that's what's up, man. So can you share some ideas, goals, that was like special significance to you that you want to accomplish? I mean, like now being a shepherd of your own church.
Yeah.
For example.
I would say, one thing I would like to accomplish, one is to be able to have our own building that is more than a church, but a facility that the community can come.
Yeah.
And
similar to what we had back home in Ohio.
Yeah. A place where, my dream is to have a church with a full-time school.
Yeah.
Is what we're planning on doing. A full-time coffee shop where people can come, really kind of like this, area where people can come, and there'll be a podcast studio. There's office spaces that people can come and work in, but really kind of develop something where the community can come, whether Christian or not Christian, during the week. And then obviously have our services on Sundays, but then also too, as an entrepreneur, to become a philanthropist so that I can help create opportunities for other people, employment opportunities for people, help other people dream, help other people who have entrepreneurial desires to have generational wealth, and stuff like that. Train people, help people, raise people up. And that's my heart, man. My heart is to help people scale up, and help people realize that they're worth more than what they have been doing currently.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Is there any life lessons that you want to pass on to others that you have so far?
Man, I would say do what your heart dreams. Like, we you hear the kids say YOLO, you only live once. Most of the time people say YOLO when it comes down to doing something stupid.
Yeah.
But I will say YOLO for doing something your heart dreams for. Like, you only live this life one time.
Yeah.
And allowing fear, insecurity, inadequacy, doubt to govern your life and keep you from the thing that God intended you to do.
Yep.
It's nothing worse than being 90 years old and looking back and saying, coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, live now. Live today. Live every day like it's your last, and accomplish what your heart's dream is. The sky is the limit.
That's what's up, man. So if we talk about reflection, can you reflect on any mistakes or challenges that may have taught you something valuable about yourself?
Mistakes, man. I made many mistakes in my life. I would say one of the mistakes that I think I've made growing up, and I'm learning even still now, is to not think about something you've never lived in.
Yeah.
Don't judge something don't judge a chair you never sat in.
Sure indeed.
As a pastor now, I go back and I look at my pastor when I was an assistant pastor and I was there serving, and, I had all these, you should do this, you should do that. Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about that? And didn't really understand why I wasn't being heard.
Yeah.
And instead of me, I was so consumed on not being heard that I wasn't hearing.
Yeah.
Now that I'm a senior pastor, I know what it's like to be a senior pastor. I know why it is he didn't do what I wanted him to do before. I didn't understand because I wasn't sitting there. Just like civilians will judge a police officer even though they've never sat in that seat before.
Yep.
So really taking the humble approach of getting to putting yourself into somebody else's shoes, or even being invited into that space so that you can learn what that place is. So I've been learning to be more aware and more humble in the approach of, like, you don't know a lot.
Yeah.
And the more that I know, the more I realize I don't know.
Yeah.
And so there's always something to learn. So I think that's probably one of the mistakes I've made. I'm a very passionate person naturally. So sometimes if I feel something, I can be very passionate about it.
Yeah.
I'm learning to steward my passion better. So that it can be added to with wisdom. But I made a lot of mistakes, man. Just in my passion, I made a lot of mistakes. And probably one of the biggest mistakes I've made is doing what I think I'm capable of.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is I know I'm more capable than I think.
Yeah.
And just submitting to the low.
Yeah.
Minimizing myself, having a dream, but only doing the mediocre.
Yeah.
Those are probably the mistakes that I've made in my life, being content with the mediocrity, being content with, I don't know, God has so much more. And without him, I can't do anything. I can't do anything without him. And there's a lot in life I try to do without him.
Yeah.
And I failed over and over and over again. And so the more I invite him into the things he wants me to do already, I can't do without him, the more I see happen. So really just inviting him into more.
That's what's up, man. So how do you align your daily activities with long-term legacy that you want to leave behind?
Man, I would say try to understand what the future holds and then posture myself in my current trying to understand what the future holds and then becoming a student of my current condition.
Yeah.
So like I know what the future holds as far as wealth, as far as entrepreneurship is concerned. But if I know that this is the future, then I have to posture myself differently now. So being more intentional in my day-to-day life when it comes down to, what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, what I'm hearing, what I'm paying attention to, where I'm putting my energy, so that I can get to where God called me to. Because I know that generational wealth is a goal that I have for my children and my family.
Yeah.
And that's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of humility.
Yeah.
So
definitely. So in closing, bro, is there anything that you want to share, or do you feel like we didn't share about yourself or anything like that? Or you feel like we kind of touched everything?
Yeah, I feel like we kind of we touched a lot.
That's what's up, man. And this is something different that we're going to do on the Great Man Podcast, because you are a pastor and you kind of gave us a lot of important information that I feel is necessary for the people to hear. And if you could you say a prayer, hoping that the information that you gave in this interview touches somebody and maybe inspires somebody to reach heights that they didn't know that they could?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just real quick.
Absolutely. Father, I just thank you, Lord. I thank you for this podcast. I thank you for the opportunity to release your word, to tell the story that you wrote about me. I'm thankful that I got to live in the story that came from your pen. Father, I just pray for everyone who is listening to this, everyone who would come across this, that they would be encouraged to step out, that they would be encouraged to be who you have called them to be, that they would be encouraged to live out the dream that you have put on the inside of them, that they would be encouraged to live beyond their means, that they would realize that there's so much more to life, and they would realize that they live only one time. They would give it their all. Father, I pray, Lord God, that you would begin to even heal them of brokenness that is keeping them from living to their full potential. I pray that you would begin to open up their eyes to be able to see them, to see themselves how you see them, so that they can walk into the things that you have called them to walk. And I pray that you would give them courage, that you would give them strength, that you would give them a tenacity to walk out unapologetically who you have called them to be, because the sky is the limit. And if you would put something in their heart, they have the ability to accomplish it. I pray that there will be no more fear, that there will be no more discouragement, that there will be no more doubt, and that they would walk into the fullness of what you have called them to. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. Now with that, we had a fine conversation with the pastor, man, good brother I know, man, for many years now. Also has helped me, mentored me personally and professionally along the way, especially when I was kind of wayward in my beginning law enforcement career, but kind of got back on track. And in doing so, coming from the military background that I have and the law enforcement background that we both share, we used a lot of acronyms. Here at the Great Man Podcast, we have an acronym that we like to use. It's called HOPS. And that's, I want people to train hard, train often, train properly, and train safely. All right? Peace.
Peace.